You thought more money would fix it. You crossed the threshold you had been working toward for years. The number finally changed, and instead of relief, instead of that exhale you promised yourself was coming, the pressure got worse. You are making more than you have ever made in your life, and somehow you feel poorer than you did when you had less. Poorer in time, poorer in peace, poorer in clarity. Society has one answer for this. Work harder, earn more. The next level is the solution. I'm here to tell you today, with complete calm and no drama, that society is wrong. Today, we are examining the Amplifier law. I'm going to show you why pouring more capital into an unstructured life is the fastest way to destroy it. And staying wrong at that level will cost you everything you have built. My name is Rabbi Shimon. I am a Torah life architect, and what I do is diagnose structural instability in the lives of men who are building, not emotional coaching, not motivational content, architecture. If you came here for inspiration, you can go. If you came here because something in you already knows that more income has not solved the problem, and you want to understand why, then stay. What we are about to discuss will reframe every assumption you have been carrying about money, pressure, and what it actually means to grow. Let us begin. Let me give you the first law of this series. Memorize it. Write it somewhere visible. Money is not a solution. Money is an amplifier. Most six-figure men are more fragile than they were when they were broke, because money did not fix their structure. It exposed it. That is the entire foundation of what we are going to build today. Money does not create peace. It does not create order. It does not create margin or clarity or relational warmth or emotional stability. What money does with extraordinary efficiency is accelerate the trajectory you are already on. Whatever structure you have built internally, whatever systems you have or have not constructed in your household, in your business, in your marriage, in your own nervous system, money will take that existing reality and move it faster and further in the direction it was already heading. This is the great deception, and it is not a new deception. Men have been deceived by it for generations. They look at their stress, their chaos, their relational strain, their anxiety, and they diagnose the problem as insufficient capital. They say, if I just had more, things would settle, the pressure would ease, the arguments would stop, the fog would lift. And so they work, they grind, they sacrifice, they push through another season, another quarter, another year, and then the income increases, and the fog does not lift. It thickens, the arguments do not stop, they escalate, the pressure does not ease, it multiplies. And they are left standing in a larger house, driving a better car, with a balance sheet that finally reflects what they always believed they were worth. And they feel worse than they ever have. This is not bad luck. This is not a mystery. This is the amplifier law operating exactly as designed. You must understand this mechanism before you can address it. Consider a man running a household and a business at $50,000 a year. He has some structure, not great structure, but functional enough to survive at that level. His communication with his spouse is inconsistent. There are some unspoken resentments building, but nothing catastrophic. His bookkeeping is a little disorganized. His schedule has gaps and inefficiencies. He procrastinates on certain decisions. He avoids difficult conversations with people he relies on. At $50,000 a year, these fractures are manageable. The load is light enough that the vessel holds. Now watch what happens when that same man with those same fractures crosses into $150,000. The tax exposure is now real and complex. He does not have a system for it. The team he has assembled to scale now needs actual leadership. and he has never had to manage people at this level. His spouse, who was already feeling disconnected, is now dealing with his increased absence and stress, and she has far less tolerance for the resentments she has been carrying. His bookkeeping chaos is no longer inconvenient. It is a liability. His avoidance of difficult conversations has now cost him a client relationship or a team member or a partnership that took 2 years to build. The same fractures triple the income, and what was survivable instability at 50,000 is operational catastrophe at 150. This is not hypothetical. This is what I see again and again in the lives of men who come to me after crossing a new threshold, wondering why success feels like crisis. And the answer is always the same. The income grew. The capacity did not. The vessel was not inspected before it was expanded. And now it is cracking under a load it was never designed to carry. I want to be precise about what I mean by capacity, because this word gets used loosely, and I will not use it loosely here. Capacity is not a mindset. It is not how positive you are, or how motivated you are, or how hungry you are. Capacity is structural. It is the actual measurable ability of your internal architecture to contain and govern the weight of what you are building. It includes the quality of your decision-making systems, the clarity of your governance over your household, the integrity of your boundaries, the robustness of your communication structures, the depth of your margin, meaning how much buffer you have before you begin operating in emergency mode, the strength of your relational infrastructure. These are not soft things. These are measurable things. A man either has them or he does not. And when income increases without these structures being upgraded to match, the result is always the same. Pressure, confusion, exhaustion, the sensation of drowning in abundance, because abundance without governance is not a blessing. It is a flood. Now, I want to take you to a moment in history that completely reframes this conversation, because what I am describing is not a modern insight. This architecture was understood and documented thousands of years ago. In the 3rd chapter of the 1st book of Kings, a young king is offered by God a singular gift. He can ask for anything, long life, wealth, victory over his enemies, the death of those who wished him harm. This king is young. He has just inherited a kingdom. He is standing at an extraordinary threshold of income and influence and power. And what does he ask for? Not capital, not conquest, not even the removal of his enemies. He asks for a listening heart. He asks for the ability to govern. He asks for the discernment to judge between good and evil. He asks, in the language of that text, for the capacity to lead what has been placed in his hands. This is Solomon, and the text records that God was extraordinarily pleased by this request, not because it was humble or pious in a religious sense, but because it was architecturally correct. Solomon understood something in that moment that most modern men never learn. That capital without capacity is a curse dressed as a blessing. That governance must come before growth, that the internal architecture must precede the external expansion. And here is the detail that most men miss when they read this story. After Solomon asked for capacity, the wealth came anyway. It came as a consequence of the governance, not as a replacement for it. The sequence matters enormously. You cannot reverse it and expect the same result. And yet, this is exactly what most men attempt to do. They ask for Solomon's wealth without building Solomon's internal architecture. They pray for the outcome without investing in the infrastructure. They want the destination without engineering the vessel capable of carrying them there. I want to be direct with you about something. Most of the men I encounter who are experiencing this particular tension, the tension of more income and more pressure, are not lacking effort. They are not lazy. They are not undisciplined in any fundamental sense. They are applying enormous energy. The problem is that they are applying that energy into a vessel that has not been properly inspected or reinforced. An energy poured into an uninspected vessel does not produce expansion. It produces cracking. It produces leakage. It produces the sensation that no matter how much you pour in, it is never enough, that you are always behind, that the pace is accelerating and the ground beneath you is less stable than it should be given how hard you are working. If this is your experience right now, I want you to understand that this sensation is diagnostic. It is telling you something specific and structural. It is not telling you that you need to work harder. It is not telling you that you need a better strategy or a new market or a more motivated team. It is telling you that the vessel has not been inspected, and until it is, expansion will continue to produce pressure instead of peace. I need to stop here for a moment. I am going to look directly at you right now and say something that I need you to hear clearly before we continue. If you cannot measure your vessel, you cannot expand it. Do not attempt to build until you have been inspected. The vessel inspection protocol is linked below. Download it before you continue. This is not an optional step. What we are going to discuss in the second half of this conversation will be far more actionable if you have that framework in hand. Go find it. Then come back. We will be here. Welcome back. Let us now go deeper into what I call the next level trap. More money, more pressure. Why? Because pressure scales faster than structure. Because this is where men make their most costly strategic mistakes. And they make them with the best intentions. A man crosses a threshold. Let us say he has been operating at $80,000 a year with a small team, a growing client base, some real traction. He can feel the next level. It is close. He can see it. He is hungry for it. Everyone around him is saying the same thing. You just need to scale. You just need to level up. You just need to go bigger. And so he does. He takes on more clients than his current infrastructure can serve well. He expands his team before he has built the communication and accountability systems to manage a larger team. He enters agreements with obligations that are based on projections rather than proven capacity. He increases his overhead in anticipation of income that has not yet materialized. And the next level arrives, not as the relief he imagined, but as a cascade of complexity that his current architecture is not equipped to handle. Because the next level does not just bring more money, it brings more of everything. More tax exposure, more legal liability, more people depending on him, including team members, clients, family, partners. More expectation weight, meaning more people with more opinions about how he should perform and what he owes them. More decision fatigue, because the decisions are now larger, less reversible, and more interdependent. And if he was barely maintaining operational stability at the previous level, the next level will not be an upgrade. It will be a pressure multiplier operating on an already strained system. This is the next level trap. It is not a failure of ambition. It is a failure of sequencing. And the correction is not to stop growing. It is to build what needs to be built before you attempt the next ascent. Let me describe what this looks like in practical terms. A man at the next level needs governance structures he did not need at the previous level. His legal exposure is real now, not not theoretical. He needs actual legal architecture, proper entity structure, clear contractual clarity with everyone he works with. His tax situation is no longer something he can manage with a part-time accountant and quarterly estimates. He needs a relationship with a professional who understands his structure and plans proactively, not reactively. His team can no longer function on informal communication and good intentions. He needs actual systems, clear roles, clear expectations, clear accountability. His marriage cannot survive on good moments and shared history alone. It needs intentional investment, real communication, structures that protect the relationship from the erosion that increased pressure and decreased presence will inevitably create if left unaddressed. His own interior life, his decision-making capacity, his sleep, his physical condition, his capacity to think clearly under pressure. All of this needs to be governed with the same intentionality he brings to his business strategy, because a man who is physically depleted and emotionally thin cannot make good decisions. And bad decisions at the next level have consequences that take years to untangle. The architecture has to be upgraded before the load is increased. This is not optional, it is structural law. Now I want to do something that most people in this space will not do. I want to diagnose the stress itself, because there is a story that men tell themselves about why they are under pressure, and that story is almost always incorrect. And as long as the story is incorrect, the prescription will be wrong. When a man is operating under high pressure and feels like he cannot find the floor, he typically attributes that experience to one of several causes. He says the market is difficult right now, or he says I have not found the right strategy yet, or he says I need better people around me, or he says this is just a hard season and it will pass. These are all plausible explanations. Some of them may even be partially true, but they are almost never the root cause, because I have sat with men in bull markets and bear markets, in easy seasons and hard ones, with large teams and small teams, with sophisticated strategies and simple ones. And the common variable in every case of sustained, unresolvable pressure is not the external environment. It is the internal architecture. Specifically, it is thin internal walls. It is the absence of genuine boundaries around what a man will and will not take into his schedule, his attention, his emotional bandwidth. It is the absence of a container, meaning a defined structure that determines what belongs in his life and what does not, what he is responsible for and what he is not, what he has capacity for and what exceeds his current structure. It is the absence of governance systems, clear decision-making frameworks that reduce the cognitive load of daily operation. It is the absence of real boundaries, both relational and operational, that protect his capacity from being consumed by the demands of others. It is income without structure, and income without structure is not success. It is well-funded chaos. Crossing 6 figures without governance is like putting a jet engine on a bicycle. The external circumstances may change. The market may shift. New opportunities may arrive. But until the architecture is addressed, the experience of pressure will not change. It will simply find new external clothing to wear. Let me be even more specific about what thin internal walls look like in a man's daily life, because this is not abstract. You will recognize this. A man with thin internal walls says yes to commitments he does not have capacity for, because he does not yet have a clear measurement of what he actually has capacity for. He operates without a defined end to his workday, which means his work expands to consume whatever space he allows it, including evenings, weekends, mornings that were supposed to be reserved for something else. He allows his attention to be fragmented by constant interruption, communication that has no boundaries, expectations that he is not pushed back against. He enters meetings, conversations, and decisions without preparation because his schedule has no white space for preparation. He avoids certain conversations and decisions because the bandwidth required to handle them feels unavailable. And so those undone things accumulate and create a low-grade background pressure that never fully resolves. He gives the best of his cognitive and emotional energy to his work and arrives home with nothing left for the relationships and practices that would actually restore him. And over time, this depletion becomes self-reinforcing. He is tired because he has no margin. He has no margin because he has said yes to too much. He has said yes to too much because he has not measured his vessel. He has not measured his vessel because no one ever told him that this was the actual work. That before strategy, before scaling, before the next level, the vessel must be inspected and the walls must be reinforced. This is the architecture that Solomon understood intuitively when he was standing at the threshold of his kingdom. He looked at what was being placed in his hands and immediately understood that the question was not, how do I maximize the resources? The question was, do I have the internal architecture to govern what is being given to me? And he had the wisdom to ask for the architecture before anything else. This is the reversal that must happen in the life of a man who is feeling the pressure of increased income without increased peace. He must stop temporarily the relentless pursuit of more and turn his attention to the structural integrity of what he already has. Not because growth is wrong, not because ambition is a problem, not because wanting more is something to be ashamed of, but because a vessel that is not inspected will crack under expansion. And the cost of that cracking is not just financial, it is relational, it is physical, it is the kind of damage that takes years to repair. I want to talk about the relational dimension of this for a moment, because this is the area where I see the most devastation and also the area that men are most likely to underinvest in during periods of growth. When a man is building, he is under pressure, he is solving problems, he is making decisions, he is carrying weight. And the people in his life, his spouse, his children, his close relationships, they absorb the overflow of that pressure, even when he does not realize he is releasing it. The man who comes home tense and unavailable because the day was brutal. The man who is physically present at the dinner table, but mentally somewhere else, working through a problem or anticipating the next day. The man who has stopped initiating real conversations with his spouse because he has no bandwidth for the depth that real conversation requires. This is not a character flaw. It is an architectural failure, and it will produce damage with or without intent. A marriage that is strained at $80,000 per year does not heal itself when the income doubles. The doubling of income brings additional pressure, additional absence, additional stress, and frequently additional resentment because the spouse who was already feeling disconnected now also has to manage the visibility of success without experiencing the intimacy of partnership. I have seen men lose everything in this gap. Marriages that looked functional from the outside, held together by shared logistics and familiar habit, that collapsed when the income increased because the pressure revealed how little structural support the relationship actually had. The income did not destroy the marriage. It amplified what was already true. And what was already true was that the relational container had not been built with the same intentionality as the financial architecture. This brings me to what I believe is the most important reframe available to a man who is experiencing this pressure. Stop treating your peace as something that is coming. Stop locating it in the future, in the next threshold, in the next achievement, in the number you have decided will finally be enough. Your peace is not a destination. It is a reflection of your current architecture. And if your current architecture is producing chaos, the solution is not to increase the load. The solution is to reinforce the structure. This is not pessimism. It is precision. A man who has inspected his vessel, who knows its actual capacity, who has reinforced its walls and identified its fractures and built governance systems that protect his most important resources, that man can carry extraordinary load. Not because he is more talented or more disciplined or more blessed, but because his structure is adequate to the weight. That is the work, and it is the work that most men avoid because it requires stopping, and stopping feels like losing ground, and losing ground feels unbearable when you are in the middle of building something real. Let me now bring this toward its conclusion, and I want to do so by returning to the metaphor that has been present throughout this entire conversation. The vessel. Your life is a vessel. The stress you are experiencing right now is not evidence of bad luck. It is not evidence that the market is against you. It is not evidence that your season is hard, or that you made wrong choices, or that success is not available to you. Your stress is a diagnostic instrument. It is telling you precisely and accurately that the current architecture is being asked to carry more than it was built to hold. And the correct response to that information is not to push through it. The correct response is to hear it, to stop, to inspect, to reinforce, to build what needs to be built before you attempt the next expansion. Your lack of peace is not a math problem. Add that up carefully. It is not about the numbers. It is not about the income gap between where you are and where you want to be. Your lack of peace is a capacity problem. It is the gap between what your current architecture can hold and what you are asking it to hold. And the path to peace, the real path, not the temporary relief of a good week or a strong quarter, but the durable structural peace of a man whose vessel is adequate to the weight he is carrying, that path does not run through the next income bracket. It runs through the reinforcement of this one. Stop chasing the next level until you have stabilized the current level. Stop expanding the vessel until you have inspected it. Stop pouring more in until you have addressed the fractures that are already present. This is not a call to settle. It is a call to build correctly. There is an enormous difference between a man who settles and a man who builds with integrity. The man who settles stops. The man who builds with integrity stops temporarily, inspects, reinforces, and then moves forward with a structure that was built to last. I want to close with something that I believe with complete certainty. You are not failing. Your structure is. The pressure you are feeling is not evidence of a fundamental flaw in who you are or what you are capable of. It is evidence of a structural gap that can be addressed. That is actually good news, because structural gaps can be closed. Walls can be reinforced. Governance systems can be built. Boundaries can be established. Relationships can be invested in deliberately. Capacity can be expanded when it is expanded in the right sequence, with the right foundations in place. Solomon did not receive his wisdom by accident. He asked for it, specifically, deliberately, architecturally. He understood what was being placed in his hands, and he understood that the primary question was whether he had the internal architecture to carry it well. You are standing at a similar threshold right now, not necessarily in the biblical scale of Solomon's kingdom, but in the scale of your own life and the things you are building in it. And the same question applies. Do you have the internal architecture to carry what is being placed in your hands? If the honest answer to that question is not yet, then you have your assignment, not more strategy, not more hustle, not more income. Architecture. Build the architecture, inspect the vessel, reinforce the walls, establish the governance, and then from that foundation expand with the confidence that what you are building is built to last. Because you are not building for this quarter. You are not building for the next threshold. You are building a life, and a life deserves a blueprint that was designed before the construction began. But what happens when the expansion is not just financial? What happens when you are handed authority, a new title, and a new level of leadership, and you suddenly realize you are drowning? In episode 46, we are going to examine the responsibility before readiness collapse. If you are preparing for a promotion, or if you just accepted one and your peace is already disappearing, you cannot afford to miss that episode. Your soul is the blueprint. Your life is the construction. Shalom, my friend. Now let's build the life God designed for you.